Before I really get into this video, I do want to make a disclaimer that it is about grief, and if that's not going to serve you at this point in your journey, feel free to skip this video. This is going to be hard. I've been a cannabis user for 15 plus years now, and I've always wanted to share what I've learned along the way, what I've picked up as far as tips on using cannabis and using it to better your mental health and your life and your wellness in general. And over those past 15 plus years, I have used cannabis to do that in a lot of different ways. But over the past year, weed has really been helping me get through grief in a way that I didn't expect, and I want to be able to share that as well. It's maybe not the fun side of weed, but I think being able to integrate these plant medicines and these things into our lives that we're using anyway, for most likely, at least if you're like me, then why not use it to your benefit? To be clear, I don't think that cannabis can cure your grief. I don't think it works that way in general. However, I do believe that cannabis can be used to better sit with and understand and manage and cope with your grief. And I think we're gonna just get into what that all means in this video today. Before I get any farther into the video, my name is Laura. I'm a mental health therapist turned cannabis health coach on a mission to empower and educate others in conscious cannabis consumption. I'm not a cannabis researcher or a scientist, and I don't have data about how to use cannabis for grief. That's not what I'm sharing today. I do have anecdotal evidence, things that I have done and that have worked and helped for me personally that I think can work for other people, and that is absolutely what I am sharing. So this is not in any way mental health advice. For if you are dealing with grief, seeing a grief counselor is a great option. There are other things to do. Please just don't take cannabis as the sole way to deal with grief. So a little bit about my backstory. I don't even know how to say this. I lost my father a year ago, and that anniversary is approaching, and it has me thinking a lot about this past year and how I have used cannabis, among other things, to help with that struggle and that grief. And, you know, I think it is absolutely normal to grieve, 100%. And honestly, in many ways, I don't think that grief ever leaves. But there are ways to learn how to manage and to then adapt your life to such a loss. And I share my story not because it's unique, but because it's not, because I know there's so many other people out there managing grief. So one factor I found really important over the past year as far as using cannabis to manage grief or to help with grief, you know, it's hard to kind of figure out the right way to say that. I don't expect cannabis to alleviate my grief. I just want to use it in a way that helps me tap in, understand, and move forward. So having conscious use is key, and that's a phrase I use a lot, conscious cannabis consumption. So it's really just, it's using weed, knowing why, and thinking about the way that it's affecting your body, your mindset, and how you're moving through your day. For many people, myself included, cannabis can actually help tap into those emotions and make you feel a little bit more connected to yourself. I won't say comfortable with those emotions, because a lot of times these emotions just aren't comfortable. Smoking a little bit or consuming cannabis can really ease into those emotions, help you sit with them, and maybe even help you realize what they are. You know, sometimes we have so many emotions that come up after losing someone that we love or grieving something that we've lost. It can be hard to tell exactly what we're feeling. So cannabis really helps you transcend that kind of part of yourself. I know that sounds a little whatever, but it really is true that it can help you just tap into your emotions, to take a minute to sit quietly with yourself, to cry if you need to scream into a pillow, but to use it in a way that helps you feel like you're able to tap into whatever it is you're feeling, because you can't move forward if you can't recognize what's going on inside. Now, to go along with conscious cannabis consumption, or to consume weed in a conscious way, what does that really mean? A lot of times that just can be meditating on it, or setting an intention before your sesh, or even something like journaling. And really, if you're not into any of that, it could be as simple as just trying to set the intention of connecting with yourself. Another factor that I find important when it comes to cannabis and grief is tracking your consumption. And I know this sounds like such a pain in the ass, because face it, like it can be a pain in the ass to track things like that, but being able to keep track of your consumption and making sure that you are not falling into a hole with it and starting to rely on cannabis in a way that is more unhealthy. Now, I'm not saying that you're forming an addiction or becoming like a problematic user. It's not that type of a thing. Anything can be a problem if you're using it in the wrong way. Anything is an issue if you're using it as a crutch. If you're starting to use weed as a crutch to not deal with your emotions, or to always be numbing out to get away, then that's different. So being able to track your consumption, how it makes you feel, how you're using it, what you feel like afterwards, so you're trying to tune in instead of numb out. Gold Leaf makes really awesome tracking journals, so I will link those below if you're interested. Speaking as a mental health therapist, I will say that generally meds aren't the answer in cases of grief. So I think seeking a counselor or a therapist that can work with you through your grief is fabulous, but being put on an antidepressant to deal with your grief isn't really going to help necessarily. It might mask those emotions or make you feel, again, numb, but depression and grief aren't the same thing. So taking an antidepressant to treat your grief is kind of just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. You're not really addressing the issue properly, and you're just trying to kind of mask that feeling, make yourself feel better. But cannabis can be a good alternative when seeking a medicine to take. Now, keeping in mind that everybody responds to cannabis differently, I do have a few recommendations. You want to manage grief and depressive feelings, things that if you're just one of those feeling really down, sad, can't get out of bed, those types of grief emotions that arise. Looking for sativa labeled strains, anything that smells citrusy or has limonene in it can be more uplifting. And if you're dealing with grief and more anxious symptoms, you're feeling maybe a little more scattered or lost, even things like just not being able to sleep. This could be for when you're looking for more of an indica strain, or things with linalool or myrcene. They're gonna smell a little more earthy. Those can be relaxing strains, things that will make you feel a little bit calmer or relaxed, and definitely things that can help if you're feeling like you can't sleep at night. And keep in mind that cannabis is just one tool in your toolbox. So along with plant medicine, seeking a grief counselor or having a strong support system in your family and friends is really important. Also, practicing regular self-care, just doing things for yourself and things that are taking care of yourself, and making sure that you are checking in with how you're really feeling and the way you're using your cannabis. So all of these things can really help you process your emotions, feel them, and then be able to move forward. And if you are struggling with grief and looking to integrate cannabis into that routine to really work with that specifically, I would be happy to work with you. I am a cannabis health coach, and that is one thing that we can work on. And coming from the experience I have had over the past year in integrating cannabis into my own life in this way, I can personally say that I do believe these things can work, and that the toolbox of tools, as corny as it sounds, really does help you move forward. Now, do I feel like I am past my grief? Hell no. Don't think I ever will be, because that's an unrealistic expectation to lose somebody that's significant in your life. It's going to cause ripples forever. So don't feel strange if you haven't processed your grief, gone through those steps of grief and come out the other side all hunky-dory or whatever the hell is supposed to happen. It's okay to be in that for some time, to come back to it and to be sad sometimes. However, it's also important to plan for the future, to feel your happiness, to go on, continue living and remembering that this person probably wouldn't want you halting your life, worrying about these things forever. So find happy moments, find your gratitude, meditate with your cannabis, go for walks, whatever it is that makes you happy. Remember those good times and carry those with you. I'm so grateful for the time that I had with my dad, and I will carry those memories with me forever. And I hope that you're able to do the same. So if you have any questions, comments, if you just need to chat, let me know. But until next time, I hope you have a dope day.